you noticed how something you're used to getting just sort of starts to shrink? Like a slow leak you can't quite plug?
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
I bet a lot of you Pi network users out there know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, those mining rates, right? It seems like they just keep going down.
It could be kind of a head scratcher. I mean, you see those numbers going down, down,
And you
down.
start to think, is this all just random? Well, let me tell you, it is not random at all.
Not random at all.
So today, we're going to dive deep into how Pi's mining rates have changed over time. We're talking history, we're talking the declining rewards issuance formula, the whole 9 yards.
The whole shebang. The thing is, this formula, it's been around since March 2022,
Mm-hmm.
and it really is the engine driving all these changes.
Right, and it's more than just, oh, my rates are lower. It gets to the heart of how Pi Network is designed to work in the long run. By the end of this deep dive, you'll know exactly why those numbers have shifted and what it means for the future of Pi.
Absolutely. If you're serious about Pi Network, you need to understand this stuff.
Let's kick things off by going back in time. Picture this. March 14th, 2019, Pi Day. The network launches. And those early pioneers, well, they were mining at a rate of 3.14 Pi per hour.
Wow. Talk about an early bird bonus.
Right. I mean, that's a pretty sweet reward for being among the first.
It's a huge incentive. Got to get those early adopters on board, spreading the word, building the community.
For sure. But as the network grew, and that's a good thing, right? The mining rate started to adjust. Think about it. Around 100,000 users, boom, rate drops to 1.57 Pi per hour. A million users. Halves again to 0.785.
Makes sense. More people, same pie. You get a smaller slice.
Precisely. And then Pi Network hits over 10 million users, down to 0.3925 Pi per hour. Now, I can imagine those early users were like, whoa, what's going on here?
I bet they were. But the key here is it was planned. It wasn't some random glitch. It was always tied to how big the network was getting.
And then we get to a major milestone, December 28th, 2021. The enclosed mainnet launches. At that point, the base mining rate settles at 0.2 Pi per hour. But the story doesn't end there.
Oh, it's just getting started. Remember, a few months later, March 1st, 2022, that's when they roll out this declining rewards issuance formula.
And that's the real game changer we're going to break down. So, what is this mysterious formula all about? Why is it so important for the future of Pi Network?
Well, think of it like this. It's the blueprint for making sure Pi Network is sustainable as it gets bigger and bigger. It's got these three main goals. Number one, keeping the total supply in check.
Right, there's that fixed cap, 100 billion Pi.
Exactly. And the formula gradually slows down the rate of new Pi coming into the system. You don't want to just flood the market with coins that could really mess up the value.
Gotcha. Control the supply, protect the value. What are the other big goals?
Goal number two is all about rewarding those early pioneers we were talking about. They took a chance on Pi when it was just starting out, so they deserve a little extra. Higher mining rates in the beginning are like their reward for that early faith.
It's kind of like that founder's stock you hear about in the startup world.
Exactly. The early birds get the best worms.
Right. So, early rewards, sustainable supply. What's goal number three?
Goal number three is the long game. It's about making Pi Network a stable and thriving ecosystem for the millions of users it has now and the millions more who might join in the future.
A controlled system so it doesn't all go boom and bust.
Right. And this formula, it lays the groundwork for that kind of long-term thinking.
Okay, so we get the why behind the formula, but how does it actually work? What's making our mining rates change?
Now, the actual nitty-gritty mathematical formula, that Pi Network secret sauce.
Top secret stuff.
But we know the key ingredients. The most important one is the base mining rate, which we'll call B. Think back to when this formula kicked in around March 2022, that base rate. It started at something like 0.01 to 0.02 Pi per hour.
That's already a big drop from those early rates.
Absolutely. And here's the kicker. That base rate, it keeps shrinking every month. Think of it like a slow drip from a faucet, getting slower and slower over time.
So it's not just a one-time drop, it's this constant downward trend.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. The formula isn't just on a timer. There are actually a few things that affect how fast that base rate goes down.
Okay, so what makes the base rate shrink even faster?
Well, one big factor is the number of active miners. The more people mining, the more that remaining supply has to be spread around. So more miners generally mean a slightly lower base rate for everyone.
So it's almost like the more popular Pi Network gets, the lower the base rate goes.
Kind of. But it's about balance. The network wants to grow, but it also needs to manage that limited supply of pie.
Makes sense. It's like sharing a pizza. More people at the table means smaller slices.
Exactly. Then there's the network growth rate. If a whole bunch of new users join all at once, that can also affect the base rate. Pi Network wants to make sure the coin supply is being released in a controlled way, even during periods of rapid growth.
So they adjust on the fly if things start growing too quickly.
You got it. And then, of course, there's the amount of pi left to be mined. As we get closer to that 100 billion limit, the formula slows down the rate even more.
It's like that last mile of a marathon. You got to conserve energy to reach the finish line.
Right. They don't want to run out of pi before everyone has a chance to get some.
All right, so we've got this base rate that's always decreasing, but that's not the whole story, right? What about all those bonuses we earn?
That's where you come in. Your personal mining rate isn't just that shrinking base rate. It's that base rate plus any extra multipliers you get from being active in the network.
So it's base rate plus extras.
Exactly. That base rate is the part the formula controls, based on all those network factors we talked about. But you can still juice up your mining rate with the extras.
So what are those extras? Fill us in.
Your security circle, referrals, and eventually roles within the Pi ecosystem.
And the bigger and stronger your circle, the more active referrals you bring in, the higher your individual rate goes.
You got it. It's not all doom and gloom with that base rate going down. You can take control of your own mining destiny, at least to an extent.
That's good to know. Now, even with those extras, I think it's worth addressing the elephant in the room. Why the constant decline? Why aren't those daily Pi earnings what they used to be? It's easy to feel a little deflated.
Totally understandable. But remember, it all comes back to that idea of sustainability within a fixed supply.
Yeah.
There's only so much pie to go around 100 billion, remember?
So the declining rate, it's like pacing yourself, making sure those Pi reserves last.
Precisely. And let's not forget, those early birds, they got to enjoy those higher rates, build up their stacks. It's a way of rewarding those who took a chance on Pi from the get-go.
Like a thank you for believing in the project early on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, if you think about it, this gradual reduction, it's kind of similar to what happens with Bitcoin. They have these things called halving events, where the rate of new Bitcoins being created gets cut in half.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. Makes it more scarce over time, right?
Right. And that's scarcity. It can actually play a big role in the perceived value of a cryptocurrency. That's something to think about when we're talking about digital currencies with limited supplies. It's a whole different ballgame than traditional money.
For sure. So for the folks out there mining Pi today, what does all of this mean? I mean, let's be honest, those daily numbers aren't what they used to be. Is it even worth it to keep going?
Now, I get why someone would ask that. Those lower numbers can be a bit discouraging, I won't lie. But here's the key. What really matters is what happens when Pi Network goes to open mainnet. What will Pi be worth then? That's the big unknown.
That's the million-dollar question, or maybe the 100 billion Pi question.
Exactly. But the point is, accumulating Pi now, even if it's a little slower, could still pay off big time in the future. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a long-term play.
So for those who are in it for the long haul, what are some things they can do right now to boost their mining rate, especially since they can't control that base rate shrinking?
All right, here's the action plan. Step 1, supercharge your security circle. Make it big, make it strong. That's a huge multiplier for your mining rate.
Step 2.
Step 2, refer new users and make sure they're active. The more active your referrals, the more Pi you're going to mine.
So spread the word, build that network, and make sure those new folks are actually mining.
Exactly. And finally, the golden rule. Be consistent. Mine every single day. That's the simplest way to get the most out of what's available.
Okay, so strong circle, active referrals, mine daily.
Got it. Oh, and speaking of resources, we came across a great one for anyone who wants to stay in the loop on all things Pi Network.
Right, the Pi Network Africa community on YouTube. It's a fantastic spot for diving deeper into Pi, connecting with other users, and getting updates.
All right, so let's wrap this up. The big takeaway here. Those shrinking Pi mining rates, they're not some random glitch. It's a carefully designed system connected to the network's growth and its long-term sustainability. That declining rewards issuance formula, that's the brains behind it all. It's all about balance. Rewarding the early adopters, making sure there's enough Pi for everyone in the long run, and setting up Pi Network for a strong and stable future.
So next time you're mining and those numbers look a little smaller than you remember, think about this. What does it mean for the future of cryptocurrencies when there's only a limited supply? How do we balance rewarding those early supporters with making sure the network keeps growing? Those are some big questions, not just for Pi Network, but for the whole digital currency world. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.